Lovely. Good evening, everyone. I'll start by reading the etiquette note. So may I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute yourselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking. If you wish to speak, can you please raise your hand in person if you're in the chamber, or use the remote raise hand function. If you raise your hand via the remote function and you're not subsequently invited to speak by the chair, please turn your camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants ensure that your microphone and camera is on to ensure that you can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of the chair and or democratic officer as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and also grab the attention of the chair or democratic officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when addressing the committee, then let the chair or the democratic officer know. We'll get straight to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I'm just aware of one, Councillor Marshalsea. So Councillor Payne, I think that might have been for Naomi.
Councillor Payne has arrived.
Yeah.
The only one that hasn't arrived is Councillor Godfrey.
Okay. So apart from Councillor Marshalsea, I don't think there are any other apologies. Okay, lovely. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest and the nature of such interests. Rhys Goodjohn.
Yes, I'd like to declare personal interest in agenda item 9, as my brother is a member of SAC and is appointed as representative for the authority.
Thank you, Rhys. Councillor Emma Goodjohn.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll echo Rhys. I have a personal interest in agenda item number 9 because my son is a member of SAC but is appointed by the authority.
Thank you very much. I don't think there are any others, so we'll go to agenda item 3, presentations, Curriculum for Wales update. Over to Caris.
Noswaith dda gyfeillion. Diolch yn fawr, Chair. In terms of this next presentation, we have been having termly updates as Scrutiny on the Curriculum for Wales over the last 2 years. That has involved schools sharing information in terms of how they're planning to implement the Curriculum for Wales, how they're working on an individual school level, but also how they're working with their clusters. We've also had themed presentations. So, for example, just before Christmas, we had the international languages presentation. We've had a presentation as well on religious values and ethics. And we've also had a presentation on Welsh. Now, we're returning to the theme of Welsh tonight. And I'm going to hand over to Kath Billington-Richards from Central South Consortium. Kath is the Principal Improvement Partner for Curriculum, and she's going to set the scene for this next presentation and outline who the schools will be involved and who will be presenting. And we will be happy, of course, to take any questions at the end of the presentation. Diolch yn fawr.
Noswaith dda I gyd. Lovely to be with you all today. As Cara said, my name is Catherine Billington-Richards and I'm the Principal Improvement Partner from Central South Consortium for Curriculum Areas. Apologies for some reason, I'm having a technical issue with my camera this evening. So as Cara said, part of our curriculum team supports the delivery of Welsh and the Welsh curriculum within schools. We support teachers themselves to acquire and develop their own language use. We also then support our Welsh medium schools in developing their literacy, their progression within the Welsh language. And of course, we also support our English medium schools to develop a curriculum which allows learners from non-first language backgrounds to use Welsh confidently. And of course, all of this is against the context of the government's targets of 1 million Welsh speakers in Wales by 2050. We're thrilled to join you this evening. We've got 2 wonderful schools presenting for us. We've got Wycombe Marcos and we've got Ysgol Gyfun Bro Morgannwg to give you a flavour of some of our work with the schools and some of the work that the schools have done then with their clusters as a result of that work. I'm also joined by 2 members of my team, Matthias Maurer and Hugh Vaughan Hughes. They're our associate advisors for Cymraeg in English medium schools and Cymraeg in Welsh medium schools. We're going to start the presentation today with Matthias, and I think you'll agree with me that Matthias is a real advocate for learning Welsh, as he's presenting today in his third language. He's a German national who's learned Welsh and is really, really passionate about young people in Wales learning Welsh. So I'm going to hand over to Matthias here, who'll take you through our first presentation from Wick and Marcross. Matthias.
Diolch yn fawr, Kat. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. In the pawb, so the enw Matthias Maurer, and I am the Associate Advisor for LLC Cymraeg in English Medium Schools in the Central South Consortium. My team supports our primary and secondary English medium schools in the region with all aspects of curriculum design and pedagogy for the teaching of Welsh. The Welsh language has, of course, a central role in curriculum for Wales. Increasing the number of learners leaving English medium education who describe themselves as confident in using the language is a key part of Welsh Government's Cymraeg 2050 million speaker strategy, and we work with our schools to meet the significantly raised expectations for Cymraeg in curriculum for Wales. In our curriculum support, we help schools to design a coherent and progressive Welsh language curriculum that develops learners' ability to use Welsh not only in their Welsh lessons, but in other lessons and outside the classroom as well. Curriculum design lends itself to cluster collaboration, and we are currently working together with a number of clusters where primary and secondary teachers collaborate with the aim of making transition from primary to secondary school as smooth and equitable as possible. Currently, a large part of our work is concerned with supporting schools in developing and embedding effective approaches to the planning and teaching of Welsh oracy. Oracy is the main focus of Cymraeg 2050 and in curriculum for Wales, and oracy has recently been identified by Estyn in their latest annual report as a priority for improvement in teaching and learning in the English medium primary schools. Our pedagogy support introduces teachers to evidence-informed, age-appropriate teaching strategies that develop learners' Welsh oracy in an enjoyable and effective way. And one of the schools we have recently supported is Wick and Marcross Church in Wales Primary School. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Carrie Thomas, head teacher of Wick and Marcross, and Rob Ward, subject leader for Welsh, to this meeting. Carrie and Rob have prepared a short presentation about the work we have done together and the impact this has had on the learners and the staff in their school. So, croeso mawr I chi, Carrie and Rob, a diolch o galon am fod yma. Thank you so much for being here. This is it for me, and I'd like to hand over to Carrie and Rob, and I wonder if it would be possible to load and play their presentation, please. Diolch pawb.
As a school, we had recognised the lack of progress children were making in the acquisition of oracy skills through the medium of Welsh, and requested support to allow us to develop the knowledge and skills to plan for and deliver meaningful, effective daily Welsh sessions. It was important to us that professional learning sat at the core of our programme of support. All teaching staff showed strong engagement during both Helper Heddiw and Welsh outside of the classroom professional learning sessions. Implementation was plotted to ensure a stepped approach, with children quickly using the patterns they had learned in a range of situations outside of the classroom. However, we were keen for our journey not only to result in the use of the Welsh language being more audible during the school day, but for our teaching to have a clear focus on research-informed pedagogy, including effective drilling and modelling techniques. This is when we were introduced to extensive progressive instruction as a tool for effectively teaching, revising, and embedding language acquisition in a progressive and meaningful way.
The training really clarified not only what we needed to teach, but how we needed to deliver the learning. There was a real emphasis put on the need for us, as staff, to drill the patterns so skills could be built on incrementally.
My Juliet on you, mewn bungalow. My Juliet on you, mewn bungalow. Glen Juliet on you, Glen Juliet on you. My Juliet on you, mewn tea park. My Juliet on you, mewn tea park.
Joy. Ond, dwi ddim yn chwarae yn y byd. Dwi'n alinio a dwi'n ysgrifennu.
Bleres ti. S-E-E traeth yn feneltyd fel gyda chi o'r enw Arthur. Bleres ti. S-E-E siop sgidiau yn iwig gyda Kylie. Bleres ti.
As governors, having the chance to join the staff team for professional learning sessions gave us the opportunity to develop our understanding of the pedagogy behind the implementation of oracy sessions. It also heightened our awareness of what we should be hearing and seeing during our learning walks at the school.
As our learning around EPI was developing, we were offered the opportunity to be part of the From Continuum to Curriculum pilot. The Continuum provides schools with a series of progressive Welsh language patterns, organised and structured in a way that supports the teaching and learning of Welsh in the curriculum for Wales. With 4 other schools from across the region, we've been able to work collaboratively on an approach to curriculum design that allows learners to use the language they've been learning in authentic contexts throughout the day.
As a subject leader, I've really benefited from the Continuum to Curriculum pilot. I've had the opportunity to work collaboratively with an experienced, enthusiastic team. This has upskilled my practice and given me the tools and confidence to support my colleagues back in school. I now have a much better understanding of the Continuum and how it can be used in a structured way to support the teaching and learning to meet the needs of our learners.
Working side by side, the programme of support and the pilot project has upskilled our languages lead, ensuring more effective leadership can be demonstrated across the school, whilst also ensuring the school is well placed to develop the next step of transferring the learning to new contexts.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you so much there to Wick and Marcos, and of course Matthias for leading us into that presentation. And we're going to hand over to Hugh Vaughan Hughes now and Catherine Bennett, who are going to talk us through some of the support that we've delivered and how we've worked with our Welsh medium colleagues.
Noswaith dda bawb, diolch am y gwahoddiad i ddod yma heno yma. Could we please load up the PowerPoint presentation? Diolch yn fawr. I'm Hugh, I'm the Associate Advisor for Literacy in the Welsh Medium Schools, and the support for literacy, language and communication has been quite extensive in the Welsh Medium Schools in the Vale of Glamorgan this year. And it's pleasing to say that all 6 primaries and Ysgol Gymraeg Glamorgan have engaged in activities aimed to support Welsh as a first language in their oracy, reading and writing skills. The Welsh Medium team, we provided professional learning through programmes run centrally, support for individual schools, and direct teaching resources on the consortium's website, such as assignments and podcasts. We've got regular network meetings held as well for literacy coordinators, where they have a chance to share practice, collaborate, and share their resources as well. And recently, Ysgol Sant Barrick in Barry recently presented for us in the Primary Literacy Network and shared their good practice on improving learners' creative writing skills. And this came about following the Welsh team's observations of lessons and a review of learners' books in Ysgol Sant Barrick. As well as the networks, we've got a new network established and facilitated by us for Welsh immersion practitioners from across the region, which focuses on sharing good practice and resources. And the new Immersion Centre in the Vale of Glamorgan is part of this network and is benefiting from the expertise of more established units within the region through this network. Can we move on to the next slide, please? As you can see on the screen now, here's a breakdown of all the schools' engagement with our support this year. And the impact of these events has resulted in the upskilling of practitioners with standards raised in learners' works. Progress has been seen through the reviewing of books, listening to learners, and professional discussions with practitioners gaining feedback. And as you can see from the screen, there's been strong engagement by the schools to the various professional learning opportunities. 4 schools have been funded by CSD to participate in external programmes that target literacy skills, a comparative judgment project, No More Marking, developing oracy through Voice 21, and we have 2 out of the 9 schools trialling a Welsh standardised spelling test produced in conjunction with Cardiff University from this local authority. Next, I'd like to introduce Catherine Bennett, who's the Deputy Head Teacher at Ysgol Gymraeg Glamorgan. The consortium has been supporting the literacy cluster meetings in which all 7 schools have been collaboratively working to develop the skills of the learners that will eventually attend Bro Morgannwg at the secondary level. In this recording, Catherine's going to outline the support and the great work that's been achieved by this strong cluster. The next slide, please.
My name is Catherine Bennett and I'm Deputy Head Teacher at Ysgol Gymraeg Bro Morgannwg. I have responsibility for curriculum and also I'm the cluster convener. We're a cluster that works well together and the relationship has always been very positive. It was crucial for that reason, and of course because the 3 to 19 continuum requires it, that we worked on progression together. We decided to work in area of learning and experience groups, looking at curriculum, content and progression in all areas. I asked for CSD's help with this to start us on our way. Progression planning is very complicated and pretty unknown to date, so I was very glad of the help they gave and still give to each area of learning and experience. This year, the cluster has focused on developing progression in languages, literacy and communications, and each meeting has been facilitated by CSC. This year, we have focused on oracy and writing and have had CSD's guidance every step along the way. It's vital to ensure consistency of approach and standards across the cluster. The starting point for this work was, of course, the Curriculum for Wales requirements. Then we used the progression maps provided by CSC and used our own knowledge and experience of learner progression in our schools. We've now agreed on the joint expectations for each progression step and are busy collecting evidence that exemplifies those agreed expectations or standards. Schools will share videos and sound for the oracy work so that moderation can occur and good practice can then be shared. Our next step is then to refocus on the Voice 21 project, funded by CSC, which will improve practitioner skills and, in turn, positively affect learner attainment in oracy. We've been through a similar process with writing, and again, we used the CSC progression map and adapted them to make our own cluster version. You can see an example of the map adapted for our cluster on this slide. Using this map, we were able to do some meaningful work on progression in creative writing in January. We looked at work completed by Year 6 and 7 learners from some of the cluster schools that took part in the CSD comparative marking project, No More Marking. Our intention was to find agreement among schools as to the expected standards for each progression step. We looked at 12 pieces of work, all anonymous, discussing how standards varied and agreeing on the relative standards of each. The result of this session was that teachers felt equipped to return to their schools, able to exemplify how progress looks in creative writing and what is expected as to correctness, imagination and expression. We see this as another step in achieving consistency of standards across the cluster. We will continue with this cluster work as it creates a sound foundation for the process of transition from primary to secondary, creating shared aims and expectations of progress. Next year, we've decided to focus on reading skills. All schools will have received some training from CSC on the Reading Reconsidered programme, so we will be looking for a consistency of approach across the cluster, including the secondary. Additionally, CSC will be delivering training in raising writing standards to the cluster schools, informed by the recent standardisation meeting. Individual schools have received bespoke assistance too. For example, Ysgol Gymraeg Bro Morgannwg has received assistance with curriculum planning and whole school literacy mapping. We feel more confident at the end of this year that we have a consistent approach to the development of the Welsh language according to Curriculum for Wales.
Diolch yn fawr am dy gyfraniad, Catrin. Thank you to Catrin there for Catrin's contribution. We will be continuing to support the cluster's work in Bro Morgannwg in developing a curriculum for Wales and working closely with the literacy coordinators and the head of Welsh department in Ysgol Bro Morgannwg. And the impact of this type of collaboration will provide a shared understanding of progress and high expectations in language skills. The knowledge, skills and experiences of learners transitioning from primary to secondary should be similar, and expectations of these schools are consistently high. Welsh medium schools in the Vale of Glamorgan have a clear vision of the requirements needed to enhance literacy skills, and it is a pleasure to support them in their aims to fulfil this vision, to improve the standards of Welsh and literacy across their curriculum. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
Diolch Hugh. Diolch to Catrin and Rob and Kerry as well. I mean, as you can see, hopefully, the partnership working and collaboration is absolutely fundamental to our work with schools and CSC, and we hope we've given you a flavour of that work around Welsh with our schools this evening. That's all from us, but we would welcome any questions, and we do have our presenters, Kerry, Rob and Catrin with us today if there are any questions in the room. But thank you for being such an attentive audience.
Thank you very much for that, Catherine. So over to councillors and committee members if there are any questions or comments on what we've just seen.
I just have one. I noticed it said bespoke support. I wondered what that actually meant. I know some individual schools have different needs, so how important is that? Thank you.
I can jump in and answer that if you'd like. So we very much have a model in Central South that's working with a school and working with their own individual aims. We have our professional learning offer that's published, but our bespoke offer is anything above and beyond what is in our published offer. So we'll meet with a school, we'll meet with, for example, we met with Catrin in Ysgol Bro Morgannwg, and we would have a scoping meeting where Catrin would explain what she felt the needs were from her point of view, and we would then develop a very bespoke programme that would meet the needs of that individual school. And so it isn't at all a done-to model, Catrin. I hope you'd agree that very much we work together, working with the actual needs of the school. So any school in Central South is can ask for a bespoke support offer, and then we craft something that meets their needs essentially. So hope that clarifies that one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Any others?
Thank you, Chair. As a proponent of Welsh and a very happy governor for over 35 years of Ysgol St Barrack, I love what is happening in our schools in the Vale of Glamorgan. I can only go back to when I was a lad in darkest Cardiff and remember that we had no Welsh in our school whatsoever. So I welcome all progress and attempts to gain fluency as either a second or a equal first language in Welsh. My concern is that, though, I see the difference between what's going on in our English medium schools and our Welsh medium schools, and I see understandably, I suspect, the difference in the style of teaching that has to be done in the small amount of time that would be available in an English medium school for progressing Welsh fluency compared to a naturally, shall I say, bilingualism within the Welsh medium schools. So my concern is, how far can pupils in an English medium school actually take their Welsh, and can they actually ever achieve full fluency? That's my wonder and my question. Thank you.
Would you like me to jump in there? And Matthias, feel free to jump in as well at any point. So you're absolutely, right. That is an issue that lots of schools can feel. And I think what's really interesting is the definition of fluency these days. So many of us who speak multiple languages, and we've got Matthias in the room who makes me feel inferior on a daily basis with the amount of languages he can speak, would say that actually we're always more fluent in one language than another language. But actually that sort of aim for perfection, it isn't what we're aiming for with the Welsh language. We want the Welsh language to be a living language that our children feel confident speaking on a daily basis. And that's very, very much the aim of the new curriculum. And you are right as well to pick up the sort of different teaching styles that's then necessary for children who are not immersed in that language 24/7 as they are potentially in Welsh medium education. So I know Matthias has been working a huge amount with our English medium schools on pedagogy, but also how to integrate language teaching, Welsh language teaching, into the daily bread and butter of what's going on in schools, so that it's not seen as an add-on. It's seen very much as an integral part of the curriculum, and it's used through daily routines. I'm going to pass on to Matthias here now, because he'll be able to speak about that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a really important question. And you raised my favorite subject, so someone will have to cut me off in a few minutes. But we published our new language continuum in the CSC at the beginning of the summer term. And the reason we did that is exactly to address your concerns about how far can the learners in English medium schools get, how meaningful can they use the language, how fluent can they get. And what our new continuum does, and Rob and Carrie are witness to that because Rob has been working with the new continuum in our pilot, is it gives schools a chance to teach the important language patterns that we need to learn, but in context that happen all the day. So we do not talk about camping, because we only do camping once a year if we are lucky, but we use patterns in situations when we ask for food, as we saw, for example, when we ask for books, when we want to say who we want to play with, who we don't want to play with. So the Welsh we learn in the restricted amount of time we have to learn the Welsh in English medium schools, we then can keep using during the rest of the day. And this concept is really effective in the way that we have to have many, many practice opportunities for Welsh once we have learned it. And by teaching the Welsh patterns that transfer and can be used once we move on to a new Welsh language pattern, learners then have the chance, together with the teachers, to use that pattern until they get more fluent in it. Obviously, this is a process that will take time to embed, but feedback from the pilot schools has been excellent. And so has been the feedback from all the clusters we are working with in planning with the continuum in this way to plan meaningful Welsh that can be used many times over to develop that fluency you have mentioned.
Thank you very much. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? No? Okay. In that case then, I'd like to move that we note the presentation and thank our contributors, including Catherine, Kerry and Rob, and keep up the good work. Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Thanks, everyone. So moving on to agenda item 4, it's back to Caris for the Central South Consortium Annual Scrutiny Report.
Diolch yn fawr, Chair. As you know, I am Caris Pritchard, the Principal Improvement Partner for the Vale, and I'll be presenting the Central South Consortium Annual Report to the Vale of Glamorgan tonight. Also in attendance are Andrew Williams, the Assistant Director for Improvement and Partnerships, and Kath Billington-Richards, who we've just seen in the earlier presentation. She's the Principal Improvement Partner for Curriculum. So we're available at the end of this session to answer any questions you might have. The annual report outlines the work of the consortium during the last academic year, 2022-23, and also the last financial year from April 2022 to April 2023. And the purpose of the report is to provide an overview of the work of the school in overview of the work of Central South Consortium, and to update you as members with the contribution of Central South Consortium and how we've worked in partnership with the Vale of Glamorgan to raise standards in schools. Throughout the report, you'll also see some short case studies or cameos, and hopefully they'll help to give some flavour to the report and to outline how we've impacted on standards and provision. You'll be pleased to know I won't go through the report line by line or in any great detail, because I'm conscious it's quite a lengthy report. But I'll just make reference to a few headings to begin with before we respond to any questions. In the first section, from section 3, from page 4 onwards, there's reference to the overview of performance for the Vale of Glamorgan. In this section, you've got reference to national examination results. So there's reference to A-level, AS and GCSE figures for the Vale. And you'll see how they compare favourably with key boundaries on a national level. There's also information on page 5 onwards in terms of the Estin inspection findings. So there's reference about inspections from February 2022 onwards. There's information about the case studies that have been published for Vale schools. And there's also a brief update there based on last academic year about the 3 schools in Estin follow-up. I'm conscious that this information isn't new for you, because it's something we revisit on a termly basis as part of our meetings, but it's just put in the context there in terms of the last academic year. There's also on page 9 of the report a reference to value-added data. As a consortium, we use ALPS value-added data that measures performance over time, and you will see that the comments there are very strong in terms of GCSE, AS and A-level. You will see that we have picked up as well in terms of 2023 that the value added of one group of pupils, the pupils in receipt of who are eligible for free school meals, isn't as strong, and that's something our improvement partners are working with schools to support them with that aspect. Sections 4 and 5 of the report, page 12 onwards, provide information about the support and challenge for schools. And here you'll find information about the work of the improvement partners in particular. You'll see that most schools in the Vale receive core support, but there were 7 schools in the last academic year that received enhanced monitoring at some point. And then from page 15 onwards in the report, you'll see an overview of the progress that those 7 schools have made in relation to their priorities over time. And you'll see there that for many schools, they made strong or better progress against their priorities. And it's noted in the report that 2 schools have moved from enhanced monitoring to core support at the end of last academic year. Section 6 onwards, from page 17 onwards, refers to professional learning and support. And here you'll have information about professional learning, but also about some of the bespoke support that Kath referenced earlier in response to the question that's available and has been provided to Vale schools. You'll see there's a whole range of information provided about collaboration opportunities, professional learning in relation to leadership for staff across the whole continuum of leadership in the Vale. There's also reference to curriculum, teaching and assessment and the range of support in those areas as well. So we've already, touched on some aspects there in terms of curriculum for Wales professional learning, the literacy, languages and communication, mathematics and numeracy, digital learning, and there's also a reference to the work that Wick and Macross have been involved in the Welsh section on page 43 of the report. Section 7 looks at equity, and there's reference there to the key document that underpins CSE's work, and that's enabling equity and excellence. And there's also information about how the use of the pupil development grant is used across Vale of Glamorgan schools. Section 8 outlines how CSE contribute to supporting LA priorities. You have got further information there in Appendix G, pages 67 to 71, but I'm also conscious that you're aware of how we contribute because it feeds into the quarterly, quarterly feedback on the annual delivery plan. But you'll see there's reference to digital learning and use of the Hub platform, the Welsh provision, curriculum support, support for vulnerable learners, and review of post-16 education. Section 9, page 50 onwards, refers to value for money, and there's a reference to core funding and grants. I'd just like to draw your attention to the LA Annex in particular. That's funding that's been used in 2022-23 to support the Vale of Glamorgan to meet the needs and to respond to pupils' social, emotional and mental health difficulties. And there's been a significant amount of work on developing what we call the relational approach. And the local authorities working closely with a behaviour specialist to support this work across many schools in the Vale of Glamorgan. There's also a reference in this section to bespoke support budget. And again, there's just one case study there of how we've used that funding to fund what we call a regional lead for governance, an experienced governor who came from a Vale school to support the governing body of another school in the Vale of Glamorgan. And hopefully that, it's just a short little cameo, but it gives you an indication of the nature of that work and the impact of that support. Section 10 is just a brief infographic outlining sharing of practice within the local authority. So there's reference to blogs, podcasts. There's also a reference to some of the presentations that have been shared with Scrutiny during the last academic year. And then the conclusions from page 61 onwards refer to the self-evaluation findings for CSE and next steps that have been identified. So I'm conscious it's been a very brief overview of the report, but I just wanted to draw your attention to some of the, sort of main messages, and we're happy, Andrew, Kath and myself are happy to respond to any questions. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much for that, Caris. So over to councillors if there are any questions or comments.
Just to say, I think we understand that this is a last year's report, and it's a bringing together everything we've been having continuously. So it's nice to see it all together, and thank you for it. But I don't think we're necessarily learning too much new here. So if we're reticent to speak, it's because of that, I would suggest, Chairman. And I welcome the report, obviously. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Payne. You're muted, Helen. Oh. We can't hear you. Okay.
That's good to go back out.
Would you like to leave and rejoin maybe? That'll work. I've got a question in the meantime, so. Okay. While we wait for Helen then, I've just got a question. So it's in the last financial year, the Vale Council contributed over £500,000 for the core functions of the consortium. I'm just interested if you want to elaborate why the CSC can fulfil those functions better than the Vale Council could.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if a colleague of mine, Andrew Williams, would like to come in here. Sort of in terms of, obviously what I would emphasise is that we're working on a larger scale. So there's some elements in terms of value for money coming through there, certainly in key posts such as outdoor education, in terms of the role of the Standing Advisory Council for RE, but also in sharing the expertise of people such as the improvement partners that work closely with our schools. And also, if you think about what Kath presented earlier in terms of the professional learning, sort of that's done at a scale because of working collaboratively with 5 other local authorities in the region. We're able to provide comprehensive professional learning programme that is aligned, sort of to the requirements of schools. So there's, in terms of the curriculum for Wales, we've got support in all areas of learning and experience. And as the councillor asked earlier, we're able to provide that bespoke support because of the capacity that we do have on a larger scale. So I'm not sure if any of my colleagues want to add to that in any way, but hopefully that answers your question, Chair.
Yep, thank you, Caris. If Andrew or Catherine want to come in, I think that's where Andrew pop up.
I was only going to reiterate what Cara said around that economies of scale aspect. For example, we are the only region in Wales that can support all areas of the curriculum. There is no other region across the rest of Wales that has subject support for each area of learning and experience. And the reason we can do that is because the economies of scale that we can offer when working across 5 local authorities. So, for example, I'm looking now, we've got 18 schools that have bespoke support plans in the Vale for expressive arts. It's areas like that sometimes get squeezed out of a supportive offer. So that economy of scale aspect is really, really important now.
Similarly, I'd agree with both Kath and Caris's comments around that. It's the economies of scale regarding improvement partners. So, for example, the funding from the Vale provides the equivalent of 3.2 full-time equivalent improvement partners, and that's to cover the special sector, secondary, primary and Welsh sector. Because of the nature of the organisation, we're able to provide cover if any of those improvement partners are sick or not able to. We're also able to provide extensive professional learning for those improvement partners across the organisation and to ensure that the latest developments in educational thinking are implemented at source.
Sorry, I should have also mentioned, actually, it's the opportunity for collaboration that's offered across local authorities as well that's so powerful. For example, Wick and Marcross, who we've heard from this evening, have benefited significantly from working with schools in other local authorities, which is, of course, what regional working can offer. So that ability to work beyond the people we work with on a daily basis or the people we may be in a cluster with can offer real rewards for our schools as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for those answers. Councillor Payne.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Great.
Yay, good. Diolch, Caris. I'm interested in it's item page 7 and 8 around Pencoetri. And I know, like Nick said, it's a yearly report, but I'm interested in the new curriculum in terms of developing or improving schools. So that would be something I would be interested in terms of that. And in terms of, in terms of Pencoetri, we were due a visit to Pencoetri. So sorry, Chair, has there been any progress on that as well? That's a secondary thing. But I am in the main part of this crux of my question is the new curriculum on improving schools.
Yeah, I'll take that question first. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen this side of Easter, which is imminent, but hopefully it'll happen in the next term, and committee members will be the first to know. And then to your other point, I don't know if Caris.
Diolch yn fawr, Chair. It's just to respond to your question, Councillor Payne. In terms of improving schools, as I'm sure you're aware, we do have a termly update on Estyn outcomes and progress of schools in statutory follow-up category. The paper for that is going to be on the agenda for the April meeting. We're very dependent in terms of providing update on Estyn inspections when they're published by Estyn, and the publication, especially of the autumn term inspections, didn't coincide with the deadlines for this meeting. They were published after the deadline, so they're already in the system and they're ready to be shared, in readiness for the meeting in April. In terms of improving schools, you're aware in terms of Pencoitre that there has been a new executive head teacher appointed. And the main focus of the school has been on going back to the post-inspection action plan and to address the Estyn recommendations. I'm aware you're referring specifically to the curriculum for Wales, but the focus of the school, and one of the main focus for the school over the coming months and years, will be to improve the quality of teaching and learning. That underpins all aspects of the curriculum, but the focus very much, and work has started already on improving the focus of the quality of teaching in the classroom, with the head teacher working closely and with subject leaders and with all members of staff to ensure that staff have clear and consistent messages in relation to expectations, and that there's an opportunity to share and develop practice within and across departments in the school. So it's work that's beginning in the school, because obviously you're aware that changes have happened recently, but it's work that's developing, and we will be supporting them moving forwards as part of that work on teaching and learning in terms of upskilling staff's capacity to support in terms of developing literacy, numeracy, and digital skills in particular.
Diolch, Caris. Thank you for that. And it's also, I welcome the social media presence of the head teacher as well. I thought they were really positive videos to post about the school. And it is about creating a kind of a buzz and a positivity around Pencoitre. It's my end of Barry. It's the east end of Barry. It's a school that I attended when it was Bryn Havrin. So I welcome all these positive changes that are happening. So thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments from anyone. No, well, thank you for the presentation, Caris, and everyone. So I move that we note that report. Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Moving on to agenda item 5, revenue monitoring quarter 3. Vicky.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the revenue position for 23-24 continues to reflect challenging demand and inflationary pressures. Steps have been taken in year to mitigate emerging overspends, but there is still expected to be some unplanned use of reserves at year end. So the report sets out an overall unplanned use of reserves of £6.9 million and a further £6.7 million of school balances. So pressures overall for the council include children and adult social care, with significant increases in the cost of placements and care packages and an increase in demand, support for additional learning needs within learning and skills, and continued inflationary pressures in respect of school transport. So some of these will be funded from reserves, and there is some mitigation from policy underspends against borrowing and additional council tax surplus. In terms of the delegated schools budget for 23-24, this is projected to outturn with an overspend of 850k, and this will necessitate a contribution from the council's general fund. This is after transferring 7.7 million from reserves and a further 1.2 million planned as part of the 23-24 budget proposals to smooth emerging revenue pressures. There are 22 schools at the moment that have submitted a deficit budget for 23-24, and of those, 19 schools have submitted non-recoverable budget deficits, but work will continue with schools to try and achieve balanced budgets. A number of redundancies have also been agreed in the school sector, and these are going to be funded from the pay reserve. Key pressures for 23-24 in the delegated schools budget include energy costs, additional learning needs support in mainstream schools. Additional funding for schools in special measures of 200k was also identified as part of the 22-23 outturn, and schools were allocated an efficiency saving of 2.75 million within the 23-24 delegated budget, and this was cut from school budgets via the school funding formula. The Central Learning and Skills budget for 23-24 is projected to outturn with an adverse variance of 578k, and that's after transferring in 1.29 million from reserves. The 578k will need to be mitigated by additional savings identified in year or a drawdown from the services reserves. This is further detailed in Appendix A. The budget is being adjusted as well for a 40k virement to fund additional energy costs at Penarth Pier Pavilion. And key pressures within the Directorate include the following: retirement and redundancy costs in schools, reduction in out-of-county income, children's placements costs, additional Welsh medium provision, and the education transport, which is a projected overspend at the moment of 646k. So as I've said, the budget assumed 2.75 million of efficiencies for schools and 564k corporately. Of the 564k, Central Learning and Skills is anticipated to achieve 379k of those savings. So the service haven't been able to fully meet the savings in relation to the removal of the school's emergency repairs budget, the makerspace income generation for letting out of makerspace rooms in Barry and Penarth libraries, and the review of arts provision. I just wanted to bring to your attention as well that the 24-25 savings that are set out in the appendix have now been superseded by the savings that have been set as part of the budget that was taken to Council on the 6th of March. I'm happy to take any questions on that, Chair, but that's a brief summary of the revenue report.
Great. Thank you very much, Vicky. So any questions or comments, please? Okay.
Thank you for that. I think we've all known and been following the slowly increasing numbers of schools in deficit budget, and we were always concerned that redundancies were inevitable, and you say now that they are actually happening. Any idea of the numbers so far, or?
I don't have that information to hand, but I can certainly get that information for you. I'm not sure if Trevor or Paul are on the call and have anything they want to add to that, but otherwise I'll certainly get back to you.
Thanks, Vicky. Would it be possible to distribute those more widely to other members of the committee as well?
Yeah, no
Lovely.
problem.
Thank you very much. Paula, yeah.
Yeah, Chair, we have figures for last year in terms of redundancies, or if you like, the figure that fell into the current financial year, and that was a total of 31. Only one of those was a compulsory redundancy. We don't have figures for 24-25 yet, because those discussions are still taking place at individual school level. So we won't be able to bring you those figures just yet.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. If there are no others, so I move that we note the position with regard to the authority's 23-24 revenue budget and the budget vehements for 23-24 in the report also. Thanks, Councillor Hennessy. Agenda item 6, capital monitoring quarter 3. Back to Vicky.
Thank you, Chair. So this report gives an update on the progress of the capital programme between the 1st of April and the 31st of December 2023. And after taking into account the requests within the report, the revised forecast outturn is projected to be 96.7 million. So Appendix 1 details the financial progress on the capital programme as at the 31st of December, and this is on a scheme-by-scheme basis. Also, as mentioned at a previous committee within the budget report, in order to be able to fund high priority bids that were submitted in the budget setting process, A further review of the capital programme was undertaken. The review identified a number of schemes to be removed from the capital programme, and these schemes total 780k in 23-24 and 10.7 million between 2024 and 2029. However, none of these schemes are under the remit of this scrutiny committee. Schemes are being closely monitored throughout the year to identify overspends and slippages, and slippage of 7.69 million has been requested in this quarter's monitoring report. Slippage relating to this scrutiny committee is 3.38 million, and that's mainly due to the reprofile of Ysgol y Derry and Ysgol Glamorgan. The report details recent delegated authority requests that have been approved and also notes the use of emergency powers, which are detailed in Appendix 1 to the report. The report requests to make several amendments to the current capital programme, and the schemes that are relevant to this scrutiny committee are the reprofiling of Bambi Ysgol y Derry. There were also some schemes requested to be carried forward into next financial year, and these include a scheme to deal with various school boiler pressurisation valves. So 20k is being carried forward in relation to that scheme, and that's because officers are currently considering an appropriate technical solution for that scheme. Victoria Primary Boundary Wall of 14k is requesting to be carried forward. External doors and windows refurbishment at Jenner Park Primary, 25k being carried forward there, and that's just because other priority works are having to be carried out initially. Drainage works at Halton Primary School of 50k is being carried forward, and that's because there's several schemes at the moment ongoing at Halton Primary, so that's just been delayed slightly. And then Cowbridge Primary Phase 2, Ysgol Glamorgan, 240k is being carried forward for that scheme, and that's because officers were waiting on the transfer of land. There were also some small environments from the education contingency budgets just to slightly top up toilet refurbishments at Colcut Primary and to top up the health and safety priority schemes. And then we also carried out a review of revenue expenditure, where we looked at all transactions over 10k to see if any expenditure was required to be capitalised. And there were a few school schemes that were identified that have been added to the capital programme. And these included Romley Primary canopies, the library self-issue kiosks, and Lantwick Major library roof repairs. That sums up the capital report, Chair, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Vicky. So if there's any comments from councillors? No. I just had a quick question. It's not specifically mentioned in this report, but with previous capital reports, we've discussed the Successful Future Centre at Pencoitra. Now, I know there's £300,000 ring-fenced from reserves for changing that and adapting it. Are you able to provide an update on the feasibility study that's going on with that?
Yeah, and I spoke to colleagues not long ago in relation to this one. Again, Trevor and Paula might have more information, but the last I heard there wasn't an update to that. They were just going to have to carry out the feasibility studies, and then obviously, as you said, we've got that 300k ring fence, and we could bring that capital into the programme then at a more relevant time.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, so I move the recommendations, and that includes noting the progress made on delivering the 23-24 capital programme. Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Excuse me. So moving on to agenda item 7, it's the service plans and target setting to deliver the Vale of Glamorgan Council's annual delivery plan 24-25. Paula.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this report, as you said, presents the planned activities which are set out in service plans and the associated targets within the remit for the committee. You might recall that in December you saw the proposed annual delivery plan for 2024-25, and at that time you were asking about actions, and I did say that they would be forthcoming in service plans. So the associated actions, those associated with the ADP, are shown in Appendix A to the report. There are a lot of them, and those are followed by the performance indicators and targets, and they're shown under each wellbeing objective. I'm not going to go through those. That there are a number of them, but I assume members have read them. So members are asked to endorse via recommendation to Cabinet the service activities and the proposed measures and service performance targets for 2024-25. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Paula. Over to committee members for any questions or comments. Councillor Goodjohn.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just interested in ADP 19. Sorry, I'm just navigating the report myself now. So I'm talking about support for schools to facilitate the phased implementation of additional learning needs, ALN. In the service plan, there isn't actually anything written there at all. I wondered if you could give some more detail about that, please.
Yeah, that doesn't look correct to me because there clearly are. Oh, Liz has come to my rescue. There clearly are actions which are in the service plans which relate to that phased implementation. Perhaps Liz could come in to confirm the position.
Thank you, Paula. And if it's okay with you, Chair, I'll answer that. I can't explain that. It must be a clerical error because that is one of our the cornerstone of what we're doing for the forthcoming year, and it does weave itself through all the others. So if I take that and just go and check, but I can reassure Scrutiny, if you like, that will be a clerical error, that there isn't anything underneath it because it forms a significant part of our work. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe if that could be distributed to committee members with what's under there. Okay. I can't see. Councillor Goodjohn.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I just wondered if while you were distributing that to us, whether you could give a bit more detail on ADP 18 and 20 as well, if that's possible.
I don't know if Liz or Paula want to come back on that one.
That should be possible, Chair. I'm just querying, really, I suppose, the additional information that you would want, because those are actions set out in the service plan. So what will happen is that when you're monitoring the service plan progress during the year, you'll be receiving further information on them.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Paula. Councillor Hodges.
Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it's possibly quite early days with a lot of this, but I was looking at ADP 26 and 27, which is, as you know, the important money of the 10-year £20 million award for town regeneration and placemarking work. And it states that it's not within our remit and it's environmental and regeneration. But surely we should be having input or say into this, because I like to think that there would be a cultural input into this within Barry that we could tap into, use and make good of. I'm just wondering if we could hopefully rewrite that and argue our case. I'd certainly like to be involved in that through this committee. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'd agree with that. If Paula, if in these reports in future, if the scrutiny committee can be included on that. I don't know if Paula's got any thoughts, but I think we'll like to push for that.
So we'll take that back, Chair. So you would like that included in the quarterly monitoring updates for this committee?
Yes, please.
I think is what, yeah.
If that's right with Councillor Hodges as well.
That's helpful, but I'd also like, perhaps, if it goes to economy environment, that we get the same report here, and we can put our tuppence in towards the 20 million, and perhaps drag some of that into our sort of purview. I'd be grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm happy to support that as well, Paula, if that can be included. Great. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I'm interested in ADP 21 around sustainable transport. Having been travelling around the Vale and Barry this week at school time, I've noticed that the traffic does seem to be increasing. So there are measures there to look at ADP 21 in terms of sustainable transport. And I would possibly, Chair, require an update on how that is progressing. And do we have anything that monitors the use around schools in terms of street closures, the volume of traffic, potential solutions, really, is what I'm after. So I'm interested in ADP 21 in particular.
Yeah, I don't know if Paula or if Trevor or anyone would like to come back on that.
I don't believe Trevor's on the call,
Okay.
but we'll have to take that back to our colleagues in neighbourhood and transport services to see what can be brought to committee. Clearly, there's a lot of work to do in that area to better understand how we can support sustainable transport, as you've pointed out, Helen. So yes, we'll take that to colleagues to perhaps bring an update back to this committee on the work that's been undertaken.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. If there's nothing else from committee members, Paul has agreed on the Towns Fund point and the school transport point, so we'll look forward to updates on that in the future and the inclusion of this committee. Thank you, Paula. And then to finish then, so I move that we endorse the two recommendations, so endorsing the planned services activities for 24-25. Thank you, Councillor Anstey. We look forward to seeing how they progress. Yeah, and Vice Cabinet requests. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8, annual delivery plan monitoring reports Q3 performance 23-24. Paula.
Yes, so this presents our Q3 performance towards achieving our annual delivery plan commitments. And as usual, you have a presentation as part of this report at Appendix A, which provides a summary of our progress. It sets out what we've achieved over the period, also where further work is required. It also sets out emerging areas of development and areas of concern. It's set out in the usual format. However, due to some capacity issues within the corporate performance team, we don't have the summary broken down into the number of actions and percentage of actions and targets achieved to date. But everything else is there as usual. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Paula. Councillor Payne. Councillor Payne. It might be a legacy hand or an accidental hand, I'm not sure. Okay. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay, I couldn't, my voice wasn't coming across. I was interested in, thank you, Paul. I was interested in Objective 3, which was around libraries as community hubs, which is kind of a post-COVID development, that they're being used more as community spaces in terms of warm spaces and also anti-poverty initiatives and stuff. So do we have any stats on the usage and what libraries are being used for what? So that's another thing I'd be interested in.
Yes, I think there are stats on usage. As you mentioned, there are all sorts of initiatives being carried out, and that does differ across our libraries, depending obviously on the size and the facilities available at each libraries. But even our community-run libraries are actually carrying out a number of initiatives. So that is something we could bring a more detailed report on to a future meeting if that's built into the work plan.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Helen. Any other comments? But yeah, I think a report on libraries would be very welcome. If people are happy with that. Lovely. Lovely. So, Helen, do you want to come back on that? No, legacy hand, no problem. Great. Okay. So in that case, I'll move both the recommendations. We've considered the Q3 performance results as aligned to the corporate plan wellbeing objectives and the remedial actions taken to address areas of underperformance. Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Moving on to the final agenda item of the evening. Agenda item 9. It's the annual report for SACRA SAC 22-23. And I think I'd probably like to declare a personal but not prejudicial interest since I'm on SACRA, but I was appointed by the local authority. So over to Paula. Okay.
Sorry, could you hear that?
No.
I wasn't expecting to actually present this report. Sorry,
Paula.
But it's crept in there. But yes, I mean, looking at the summary of the report, it's been referred to the Scrutiny Committee for comment. The report summarises the activities of SACRA and the local authority is required to agree and ratify the annual report for 22-23. And then once that's ratified, the report can be published. So Cabinet, I think, would like Scrutiny's comments on the report before final ratification takes place.
Thank you for that, Paula. So over to committee members for any comments or questions. I've got one, Paula. So there's 4 vacancies on the committee for different religious denominations. So it's Judaism, Sikhism, Free Churches, and Buddhism. I was just wondering what efforts are being made to fill those slots.
Chair, I would need to come back to you on that, but I can find out.
Okay, thank you. I can't see any other hands up. Councillor Hodges, there you go.
best of luck trying to fill those, I suspect. They're quite minority, I'm afraid. Just to say I'm happy to move and endorse the report.
Lovely. And Councillor Hennessy's seconding it. Yeah, I've got the nod, so there we go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paula. And that was the final agenda item for the evening. So thank you, everyone, for your attendance and participation, and see you in April. Nostar.